Hi, time for another ramble, I guess. I really like a lot of old B movies, and one category genre that I enjoy are westerns. In particular, like 60s, 70s spaghetti westerns. I like some classic stuff. High Noon is unbeatable, Shane is a lot of fun, but I like it when it gets like grimy and casts the West as basically this fairy tale land where anything can happen and it's always bad. Some games that play in the spaghetti western genre are the Red Dead Redemption games. I loved Red Dead Redemption in college, and I finally played Red Dead Redemption 2 because it always takes me ages to play any new video game, waiting for it to go on sale on Steam, and I'm always way behind the curve on stuff like that. Anyway, love both games. They are, I think, in terms of video game storytelling, really strong. And they both have a lot of both references and, I think, inspiration from old westerns, especially spaghetti westerns, but not only. And so, if you like the games and kind of want to learn more about where they came from, or you want to see movies that are kind of like that, or if you like westerns and you're curious what a video game did to build off these, it's what I'm going to talk about. Now, there are three westerns in particular that I suspect influenced these games, and if they didn't, then have a lot of synchronicity with them. So, first, I'm going to talk about is The Shootist. Stop me if you've heard this one. An old gunslinger at the turn of the century has a terminal disease, and he's got to set his affairs in order, kill them folks that need killing, and maybe help a young boy who idolizes him go on and lead a better life than he did. Well, that's Red Dead Redemption 2, and that's also The Shootist, John Wayne's last movie. I'm not the biggest fan of John Wayne, not about his personal shit, because if I was going to vet every classic actor for being a good person, who boy. I just mean, when I like his movies, they're usually ones where he's kind of not doing John Wayne. He's being a little different than his persona. And I'm going to talk about two of those movies. And the first is The Shootist. I am not going to be talking about The Searchers because I don't like The Searchers, but I'm in the minority on that. So if you like The Searchers, great. Anyway, The Shootist, it's his last movie. And, well, he's known for playing like this big, tough guy. He's kind of fading here. I mean, in character. He's got, I think it's stomach cancer. And he's worn out. And he's sad, and he feels like time has passed him by. And he's got some enemies that, really want to have that final last stand, but he's tired. He doesn't want to do that. But he also doesn't want to die of cancer, and he's seriously thinking about maybe getting gunned down in a duel is better than a long, agonizing death. And it's sad and it's sweet. Lauren Bacall is in it, one of my favorite old movie stars. And one of the bad guys drives a car, and they portray it as like the dorkiest thing imaginable. It's like the equivalent of, I just got Google Glass. This is the future. And this guy driving this little put-putt kind of car. And I would be very surprised if Arthur dying of tuberculosis and it just gotta finish all that stuff. And I don't want to. I'm not in the mood for violence, but this is the life I've led and I gotta finish that up. I'd be very surprised if it didn't owe anything to that. The second big movie I'm going to talk about is Unforgiven. Now, stop me if you heard this one. A gunslinger has retired for the sake of his wife, his children, just going to be a farmer, just a rancher, move on from all that. But circumstances call him back in. He's got to go kill some folks. And in the process, he's got to examine, has he really changed? Is he doomed to be just a cold-blooded killer forever? That's Red Dead Redemption 1. And that's also Unforgiven. Unforgiven is a lot like The Searchers, or God, no. Unforgiven is a lot like The Shootist in some ways, in that it's kind of Clint Eastwood's version of that. He wasn't dying, but this was the last of kind of the Clint Eastwood westerns. Depending on who you ask, it may or may not be the man with no name that he's playing. I don't think it is, but anyway. And he's this guy. He killed a lot of people. If he was playing Red Dead Redemption, he was doing a low honor run, because he's like, yeah, I killed so many people who really didn't deserve it. I do not want to be that person anymore. But bounty hunting makes money. Ranching is kind of hard. My kids need money. And, I can do this. I can just finish this up and go back to the old life. Or can I? Maybe this is what I've been good at. Can I ever move on from that? Unforgiven is a great movie. It's kicked off by this guy attacks and cuts the face of this sex worker. And in Red Dead Redemption 1, one of the random encounters is you head off the plot of Unforgiven at the past. You're in, I think it's Armadillo, and you're by the brothel, and there's this guy with a knife and this girl on the ground, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna cut you, whore. And if you're 99% of players and John Marston, that guy is dead. Unforgiven solved right there, except for the plot of Unforgiven that you're carrying out. Like I said, I love this movie. I'm not even beginning to touch all the stuff. Gene Hackman is so evil. Morgan Freeman is there. It really makes being a gunslinger seem both badass and really miserable. So I always like it when movies can capture that sort of thing. So, third movie. Stop me if you heard this one. Real cowboy who believes in freedom, and he's been a father figure to this young guy who idolizes him, but he's going nuts. He has become a tyrant. He is leading everyone probably to their deaths. And so the boy who loves him like a father, he's got to stop him. That's Red Dead Redemption 2, The Decline and Fall of Dutch van der Linde, and that is also Red River. Now, I mentioned when I like John Wayne movies, it's usually movies where he's kind of not doing John Wayne, or he's doing a twist on John Wayne, and that's one of this, or this is one of those things. He's not a gunslinger. He is a cowboy in the sense that he works with cattle, and they're driving the cattle range, and he does, though, kill people. He's got a gun. He is not afraid to use it, and he's always been kind of on the verge of being an outright rustler, kind of taking some cattle that really belong to somebody else. But he is going nuts. It's been compared to Mutiny on the Bounty. It's also, when I showed it to my husband, he was like, oh, it's Western Aguirre, the Wrath of God. And it's kind of that. And I think it's Montgomery Clift, who's the younger guy who finally rebels and says, you are going nuts. You are going to get all of us killed. And the John Wayne character does not take that well. And it is brutal. I mean, the ending is happy-ish, but this is the dark version of the badass cowboy. And if you like The Decline and Fall of Dutch van der Linde, I think you'll find something to like in that. So those are the movies that I think are the most direct inspirations. So now I'm going to talk about movies that feel like playing the Red Dead Redemption games. First is Fistful of Dollars. It's the breakout Clint Eastwood movie, classic spaghetti western, one of the movies that kicked off the genre, along with Django, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. And this is completely ripped off of the Kurosawa Toshiro Mifune movie, Yojimbo, which is also very good. I I recommend them both. I'll see two productions of the same play with different actors and directors. Fistful of Dollars. This, when I rewatched it recently, this feels like I'm playing an open world crime game. You walk in, our hero, our anti hero, walks into town, and there's two criminal factions, and you got to go mess with them. And in the process, you're getting yourself in danger. There's an opportunity to earn money. Do you want to focus on that, or do you want to save this person, this woman who's being kept more or less as a sex slave by the bad guy? And the man with no name, Clint Eastwood character, well, he wanted to play a low honor run of Red Dead Redemption, but he ends up playing a high honor run because sometimes you change your mind about what's important. And I love these movies. I think actually the next one, for a few dollars more, is probably my favorite of the trio, which ends in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And actually, if you like the character of Sadie Adler, which you should, why wouldn't you like the character of Sadie Adler? That's like one of those, my family member was murdered and I am gonna become a bounty hunter and everything is about avenging them. So that's like a subgenre of Western, but that's a good one. So that's one of the movies that feels like playing Red Dead Redemption. Another, now here's the thing about spaghetti Westerns. There are some gems, but there's a lot of movies that aren't gems. And sometimes those are still fun. So if you meet Sartana, pray for your death. That's not advice, that's the name of the movie. It's a series of movies about this guy Sartana. He's playing low honor run. He is one of those anti-heroes where everybody else is worse. He would probably be the villain in another movie. And the reason I'm bringing it up isn't because of the plot, but this is the sort of movie where people drop like flies. If you've ever played one of the Red Dead Redemption games and just thinking, wow, just riding cross country, I haven't even been trying to start fights and I've killed like 20 people. That's a Sartana movie. That is, by the end of a movie, just everyone except our main guy and maybe like a comic relief character is dead, and not in a, oh my God, Unforgiven, this is so horrifying way, but it's just like, yep, that's how it goes kind of way. And it's almost slapstick. And I kind of think of those movies every time I'm just riding through the countryside, and oh, there's the O'Driscolls. Oh, I don't even know who these guys are. They seem to be some kind of cannibal clan. Well, gotta wipe them all out. Just course of living my life. Also, on that note, there's a very minor B-Western called Gunslinger, and it was shown on Mystery Science Theater 3000. And by the end of the movie, because it's a Roger Corman movie, so it's pretty cheap, and they don't have a million extras, and so like all the characters except for the heroine are dead, and she's the sheriff, and the one of the riffs is, wow, now she's the sheriff of herself. I say that line so many times watching spaghetti Western movies, because there's so many times where it ends and the character's like, well, I guess they're the sheriff of themselves now because there's nobody else. So now some things that I think are, I don't know if they might be references or they might be just things I think about. And so first, I'm going to take a quick historical interlude. Now, when you play Red Dead Redemption 2, there's a lot of gangs you fight, and some of them you feel a little like moral ambiguity. For instance, the O'Driscolls, they're bad people, but especially once you meet Kieran, and he's a nice guy, and he was basically kidnapped into being one of them, you can feel a little bad about how you just gun them down without mercy. Not so for the Lemoyne Raiders. They're not a gang. They are a domestic terror group. The game also has the clan, and the Lemoyne Raiders, they're kind of the prototype because they are based on a real group, Quantrill's Raiders. Now, before the Civil War, and also during and after, these guys are bad news. I'm This book, Battle Cry of Freedom, it is huge and it's taking me forever to get through, but this is like his Civil War, American Civil War history book. Pulitzer Prize, covers everything. So, let me tell you about Quantrill and about the massacre of Lawrence, Texas. This is in the game. I mean, you don't see it, but you get a letter. One of the first guys you kill is a letter saying, "Thanks for helping us root out those Jayhawkers in Lawrence, Kansas." And Arthur and Sadie go, "What the hell is this?" And that's your introduction to the Lemoyne Raiders. And if you don't know about Quantrill, you're like, wonder what that's about. But if you do know, you go, oh, no. So, Quantrill he was a Confederate, and he was not content to fight in the actual war. Now, Kansas, Missouri, there were a few of these border states where there were some people who were pro-Confederate and some people who were pro-Union. I mean, that was true to a lot, basically everywhere, but especially in these border states that were sort of neutral. And there was this town, Lawrence, Kansas, that was known for being a hotbed of abolitionism. Some very prominent people who wrote against slavery and were anti-slavery activists lived there. So Quantrill's raiders, as the name implies, they start raiding, they start some attacks. And their female relatives who helped give them shelter were arrested. They were placed in a jail, and there was one of the buildings collapsed, and some, but not all of them, were killed. And you could call this revenge, but there's evidence that they were planning what came next beforehand. So, let me read you what Battle Cry of Freedom says happened next. This tragedy set in motion a greater one. Inflamed by a passion for revenge, the raiders combined in one large band of 450 men under Quantrill, including the younger brothers and Frank James, and headed for Lawrence, Kansas, the hated center of free soilism since the Bleeding Kansas days. After crossing the Kansas line, they kidnapped 10 farmers to guide them towards Lawrence and murdered each one after his usefulness was over. Approaching the town at dawn on August 21st, Quantrill ordered his followers, "Kill every male and burn every house." They almost did. The first to die was a United Brethren clergyman, shot through the head while he sat milking his cow. During the next 3 hours, Quantrill's band murdered another 182 men and boys and burned 185 buildings in Lawrence. They rode out of town ahead of pursuing Union cavalry, and after a harrowing chase, made it back to their Missouri sanctuary where they scattered to the woods. 182. I mean, a lot of people died around the Civil War. 182, every man and boy in the town of Lawrence, Kansas. So the reason I bring this up isn't just to tell you do not feel any moral ambiguity about killing all the Lemoyne Raiders you find, but also because, hey, you ever seen The Hateful Eight? You know the character of Mannix, who's like the little Weasley racist. I was going to say the little Weasley racist guy, but that describes almost everyone in The Hateful Eight. But he's the one, he and Samuel L. Jackson obviously hate each other, but at the very end of the movie, they're kind of on the same side just because everybody else is trying to murder them. He's part of a group they call Mannix's Marauders. And that's supposed to be Quantrill's Raiders also. And he's kind of supposed to be Jesse James in that he's got this folk hero status that he really, really does not deserve. And he's just a racist murderer. And he's become a folk hero because, and no, he shouldn't be. That's the Lemoyne Raiders. That's the legacy in media, among other things, of Quantrill's Raiders. Jesse James has perhaps gotten a little unfair heroism. You know that song that Arthur sings when he gets drunk? A dirty little killer who shot Otis Miller, laid old Otis in the grave. That is the song, just words changed, of the guy who killed Jesse James, who was his friend, Robert Ford. Just shot him in the back, and, bad way to go, even for someone as bad as Jesse James. But it's that dirty little coward who killed Mr. Howard and laid Jesse James in his grave. There's a movie about that called, I think it's I Shot Jesse James. It's not like a great movie, but it's sort of an early attempt at a psychological Western. So I'm veering off a little bit from Red Dead Redemption, but if you're curious about that song, you could do worse than watching I Saw Jesse James, shot Jesse James, because it's about Robert Ford after killing Jesse James, and he's got to go through the rest of his life hearing that damn song, which, not fun. So I mentioned The Hateful Eight. The Hateful Eight is one of those westerns set in snow-covered mountains, and those are always really tense because that's a thing where, you're not out riding the range and feeling like a man. You are going to die if you don't get some shelter. And that's the beginning and the end of Red Dead Redemption 2, when you're in the snow-covered mountains. And so another movie that is a very brutal winter western, and it's a spaghetti western, is The Great Silence. And this is about this guy who's basically kind of an anti-bounty hunter. He protects these people, these petty criminals, from ruthless bounty hunters. But there's one who maybe he can't face. And he's played by Klaus Kinski, who is this, in his real life and in his movie persona, extremely disturbed German man. And if you see a lot of spaghetti westerns, you see a lot of him. When I rewatched for a few dollars more, I got jump scared because he's not even in the credits. And I didn't remember it last time, but then he's in a minor character in one of these gangs. Is that Klaus freaking Kinski? He's got a face as soon as you see it. Honestly, Micah would be played by Klaus Kinski. He's got that face, and that's the kind of character he played, and arguably that's who he was off screen. If you want to know more about that, watch the Werner Herzog documentary, My Best Fiend. But Great Silence, one of the most horrible, horrible villains. And a la Red Dead Redemption 2, it's that confrontation with him at the end on those snow-covered mountains. But it's a very different ending. I'll just say that. A couple other spaghetti westerns I want to mention. I said before that I talk about Django. This is the original Django in, I think, 1966. And it's with Franco Nero. And it's also, you like Trigon, you like Wolfwood. It's this guy, because he's just lugging around a coffin, and you sort of wonder. And then he opens the coffin, and this big old, maxi gun comes out and suddenly mows down all the bad guys. And you just go, oh my God. So, you play the Red Dead games and you get those maxi gun moments. That is when you are Django / Wolfwood. Fun fact, one of the early drafts of Dracula included Quincy Morris, who I've done a whole video about. Cowboy, great dude, mostly left out of the movies. Killing Dracula's brides with a maxi gun. So, that would have loved to see that on screen. Now, if your favorite moment is not killing anybody with a maxi gun, but is maybe setting fire to that damn plantation for the Braithwaites, then you watch Django Unchained. Not the same Django, although the first Django does have his cameo in this one. It's the Tarantino movie. Jamie Foxx, former slave, and he's gonna blow up that damn plantation. And good for him. That the ending of the movie, and he's got the sunglasses on, and he's got this burgundy velvet, and just great bit. You like Red Dead Redemption, you're gonna like that. Oh, let's see. So, yep. I've heard some people argue that the whole genre of the Western is something we should leave in the past, because let's not kid ourselves here. The manifest destiny underneath it is one of the worst things that America, the country, ever did. And I get that. So I'm not trying to necessarily argue against that. I will say I don't entirely know if I agree that the genre is irredeemable, but I do understand it. But whether it is or not, I think there's just a lot of good stuff in this genre, and if you like the Red Dead games, it's worth checking out some of those movies, and if you like the movies, give the games a try or watch some compilations of the best scenes. Anyway, if you think I've left out some references, one more. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, fun, neither spaghetti western nor old school, kind of fun new Hollywood. But The Bitten 2, where he goes, "You can't fight gravity," and they jump off into the water and they survive, that is almost certainly a bit where they do that off like a waterfall in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. You like cowboy bromances, that's the movie. Anyway, if you think I've left out any great, any big references, you're going, how can she not mention that? Or if you feel like, well, you left out the most important thing about Django, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Bye.